Welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I am Aidan,
And I am Jack.
and we are very excited to recap the Cannons Week 3 win in overtime over the Philadelphia Waterdogs. I
Dilly
think
dilly, baby.
this will definitely go down as the Zach Tucci game, unless he somehow has an even better performance later on down the year, which
The
we'd all be
first
excited about.
Zach Tucci game.
Yeah, the first Zach Tucci game. There we go. Um, the player of the game by pretty much any metric. He actually led the Cannons in scoring with 3 goals, including a two-pointer that we will definitely be talking about in more detail later. Um, he went 75% at the face-off dot. I think it was 18 for 24. Um, Scored the overtime game winner. Just really everything you asked him to do, he did it and more. Like we both had Tucci in our fantasy lineup this week. We certainly did not. Well, let's say he outperformed his expected points haul. Uh,
Very much.
yeah.
So yeah.
Um, and I think there was again a return to form for some of the other cannons. Colin Kirst, that is the goalie, with a great performance, 57%, 15 saves, 11 goals allowed. Um, let's see, we had pretty balanced scoring across the board. We had Nolting with 3 points. We had Campbell with 3 points, a two-pointer and a 1 point goal. Each Kavanaugh had a goal. Holman had a goal. Let's see what else. Oh, Connor Kirst had a goal. And then we had some, yeah, so that was all the scoring. So, not as dominant a performance from, like Asher or Holman that we saw last week against the Whips. Tucci kind of took over some of that, but I think you love to
Yeah.
see that as well as a goal from most of your offensive guys. So really, it was just like Drenner and Verdara who were left off the score sheet.
Yeah. I think that on the one hand, you're like, oh, it didn't feel like any of those guys really popped off, but obviously Tucci popped off. It was a low scoring game in general, 12-11, and
Yeah,
only one goal scored by each team in the fourth quarter. Um, so especially I think that fourth quarter kind of skews things. You have 10
yeah,
through three quarters. You're
right.
thinking those stats are fine, and then everyone gets held off the board in the fourth. But a win is a win, and it's not like the offense played poorly. I
Right.
think, well, I guess that there were a lot of turnovers,
Yeah.
so there definitely was some sloppy play. Offense definitely could have played better, but from a scoring wise, it's not like, oh, this player was missing or oh, this guy did terrible. It's as you said, it was just very well balanced.
Yeah. And I think we also didn't give the goalies enough credit when we were talking with Ryan last week about this
Mm.
matchup where we both said the winner would have 15. Like Dylan Ward is the goalie for Team Canada. I think he won MVP of the 2014 games, and
Hmm.
Colin Kirst is no slouch. I think he will be a Team USA goalie at some point. I know he was at the Sixes Olympic camp during this past week as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that these teams both have incredible offensive talent, as we know, but they also have two of the best goalies in the world. And I think that should not surprise us, maybe that the goal total was not the highest of the weekend, not by
Yeah,
a
the
shot.
definitely got overshadowed, and maybe a little bit of that is the recency bias of
Yeah,
sixes and how I think the championship was 26-25, and obviously sixes you're gonna score a lot, but
yeah,
that was definitely a very exciting high scoring game. So, and granted, the Cannons did only put up six in the semifinal loss last year, but
mm,
it just feels like in general, the story of both of these teams is their offense, the Asher, Holman, and now both Kavanaughs, and then
yeah,
Sowers McCardle. Those are the stars of the team. No, no shade at either team's defense. Not
no,
just but like as we just mentioned, no shade at the goalies, but even the defense. Both teams are very strong defensively, but the faces of the team are the offense. So I think people, when it comes to storylines, just focus on the offense and sort of forget that they've got some damn good defenses too.
yeah, and yeah, the offense really is what makes highlights and what sells tickets more. But we talked about, those stars and the Cannons having a balanced attack. For the Waterdogs, it was the exact opposite. Their two stars, Kieran McArdle, Michael Sowers. Sowers had 8 points with 3 goals, 5 assists. McArdle had 6 points, 4 goals, 2 assists, and no one else in the Waterdogs had more than two. You had Conrad with 2 assists, Courier with 1 goal, Kelly with 1 goal, and that's it for points.
I think that read somewhere, it might have been in Inside Lacrosse, that there was only one goal that the Water Dogs scored that McCardle or Sowers wasn't a part of.
That would make a lot of sense based on those numbers, yeah, because you had 7 combined assists from Sowers and McCardle, and
Yeah.
7 combined goals. So they clear out of 11 total that they scored.
So
Yeah, so they
it
were
was really a two-man show.
for sure. And I think that's certainly, shutting Michael Sowers off the score sheet is easier said than done. But I think that will definitely be the Cannon's number one focus is how can we make sure that he can not get his, or how can we limit him? Because I think if Sowers goes for 4 points instead of 8, the Cannons win this game easily.
But maybe that opens up the rest of the offense. It's kind of
That's
like
true.
in the NBA where, like NBA finals right now, you face the Mavs. You could double Luca
Yeah,
and try to really limit him, but then he just dishes the rock to everyone and they score. The
right.
Celtics are just like, hey, Luca's gonna get his. Let's just make sure that nobody else gets theirs. And I think that's kind of the approach that the Cannons took. Michael Sowers, Philly boy, playing in Philly. He's gonna be jacked up. He's gonna be ready to go. You know that he's gonna get his. So let him get his and just shut down everything else. And that's
Yeah, and
exactly what they did.
it is exactly what they did. And yeah, looking at these names, Connor Kelly, Jake Caraway, Matt Brandow, Ethan Walker, 0 points for all four of them. You're right. Like, yeah, if Sowers, if you can limit
Matt
him,
Brandow, the
yeah,
dude that just put up how many in college?
I think
A
he was averaging like
hundred
8 a game, basically
some.
by himself.
Yeah, he was the entire Yale offense this year. That dude is a point machine,
Yeah.
and he didn't have a single point
Yeah.
yesterday.
So
That's insane.
yeah, you are talking me out of that if you can just if the two of them have to do it by themselves, then that is also probably a recipe for the Cannons to win.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, well, this game will look different because the Water Dogs just have to do something different on the face-off the next time these two meet. And before that for week 4, like we still don't know exactly when Stathicus will be ready. I don't think Connor
Yeah,
Farrell is the guy. Um,
but I don't know when Stathkis will be ready. I know that that was the plan
yeah,
for the Water Dogs going into it, was just to wait for him to come back.
but it
But
might be too
after
late.
these 2 week, yeah, after these 2 weeks, because they had the bye last week, that 0 and
Yeah,
2, they clearly are just hurt so much by not having a FOGO. I
yeah,
think that you have to go pick up someone, even
I
if it's
know.
just to tie you over until Stathakis comes back and then you release whoever you pick up. Philadelphia needs a FOGO. They
Yeah,
will not, they can't win without one. I mean, that they're getting crushed and they're almost winning both of these games. They'd be so they there's a very real chance that if they have a FOGO that they win both of the games that they've
yeah,
lost.
absolutely. And so for context for our listeners, we were recording this during the Philadelphia Maryland game. So we don't know what's going on in that, but Joe Nardella can certainly push the ball in transition. And he's not a defensive liability as well. So I know I did check a little pregame before we started that Courier will not be facing off again, which is good because you need him to do other stuff. But I like this Whip Snakes offense we saw, like they don't look very good, but if they have the ball 80% of the time, they're like again, this could all like if the Water Dogs do manage to beat the Whip Snakes, this won't age well. But I don't feel great about them going up against Nardella, who is going to give them the ball every time and can score. Um, so yeah, we'll see. Back in Cambridge, or technically in Alston, I suppose, in a couple weeks. Uh, I'm very excited for this rematch, maybe even more than I was before this game, because Um, yeah, the Cannons, they played their game really, really well, and there's still some
They
things
really did.
to shore up on, like the turnovers we mentioned, and
Yeah.
uh,
And
the defensive like communication still not where it should be. And I think, you know, credit Jack Keelty or Keelty was responsible for a lot of that, and so his loss is really huge. But I have all the confidence in the world of their coaching staff of Hartzell and the players they have out on the field, right? Like Bryce Young, Garrett Apple, Kate Van Horst, like are elite defenders, and we know they're going to figure it out.
yeah, and I think the penalties too
Yeah,
hurt them a little bit yesterday. It didn't hurt them as much as it could have. I think that was another big one. You talk about all of the turnovers. The Waterdogs did not capitalize on turnovers or penalties, which the Cannons were very fortunate for because it could have been their downfall yesterday, just with how sloppy some of that play was.
yeah,
The turnovers on the offensive end, I think that they will get that sorted out. And like you said, I think the penalties, part of that is sort of the defensive communication lacking and guys sliding late because they didn't know they were supposed to be coming in, and then they end up hitting the guy late. Or maybe there's also a little bit of Boston, Philly,
yeah,
Cannons, Water Dogs in general, kind of trying to send a message.
yeah. And
Wouldn't be
well,
surprised.
yeah, and Garrett Apple is the type of guy who's like he's going to get a handful of unnecessary roughness calls every year, and you're fine with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, the Cannons had 10 more turnovers than the Water Dogs, 24-14. They also had 3.5 minutes in penalties versus the Water Dogs two. And so
Mhm.
two of them were concurrent. You had the Trainer and Young go to the box at the same time. So it's technically only three like power play opportunities, but the Dogs were 2 for 3. So you obviously want to limit those opportunities, and hopefully they're able to, if not be more disciplined, is, I think that Bryce Young penalty to go and kind of clean out Sowers or McCardle after the whistle
Mhm.
was probably the worst decision, but just
Yeah.
to play between the whistles, like play hard. Obviously, we all want the Cannons to do that to assert themselves both physically and on the score sheet. But just you know clean it up a little bit so that like don't give the ref any extra excuses to send you to the box. As
Mm.
much as I do love mentioning the Rebel Bourbon power play on the broadcast.
I think the Cannons also talk about turnovers were a little bit lucky on the flip side because I believe I saw of the 14 turnovers that Philadelphia had, only three of them I think were caused turnovers.
Four, yeah,
So four of them were caused turnovers. So Philly themselves were playing very sloppy offense and just gifting the ball to the
yeah,
Cannons.
yeah. I mean, there was one I remember. I don't remember who was. It was someone late in the shot clock. Like it seemed like tried to make a pass or take a shot very off balance, and it was essentially just a pass to Colin Kirst, which like
Yeah.
thanks for
Yeah.
that, the free
Thanks.
transition.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, it was I mean, a fun game overall, certainly.
Mhm.
One that I think we're probably going to look back fondly on again because of the Tucci game.
Yeah. I
Which
think we mentioned at the start
yeah,
that this was the Zach Tucci game, and then I feel like we just started going off onto other topics. So I think we need to unpack
I do.
Zach
Yeah,
Tucci a little bit more because I mean, what a game,
I
revenge
know.
game for Tucci. I know
Oh
he said
yeah,
after the game that he wasn't really thinking about that, but
come on.
there's got to be a part of you that's like
Yeah. So
feels good about beating the team that didn't want you.
yeah, so for any listeners who are unaware, the PLL's roster rule is if you don't play in 30% of your team's games from the prior season, you are essentially left unclaimed to the player pool. And that team can, of course, re-sign you. But we all saw the Dogs went without a face-off specialist for most of last year. And Tucci had a pretty bad game pretty early on, and then they just decided basically to go with Courier or I think it was mostly Eli Gobrecht and Liam Burns taking
Mhm.
face-offs with the long pole. Um, and just left Tucci open. And then obviously drafted Stathicus with the new rules that you're no longer allowed to put a poll. So Stathicus, I'm sure we'll see him again, or we'll see him later in the year. But yeah, they clearly decided Tucci was not the guy for them. Brian Holman gave him a chance, and we are loving him for that. I think, and I'll admit, we were skeptical We expected them to draft a guy, or at least to take a guy supplementally,
Yep.
to fill up their 30 men. They didn't. I agree with Holman's reasoning when we had him on. Basically, like there was no one they thought couldn't do what at least Tucci could do, and I would say that he was right. That Tucci could probably do a little more. I know we saw like Nasa was roughed up towards the end of the year at Duke. I think Stathakis was as well. So yeah, can't agree more to keep him on the like to get him on the roster. And he also didn't dress week 1 for us. They tried um their prevent basically strategy that they used all last year. Obviously did not go very well against the Atlas. Um, and so you brought him on to change things up. Did quite well against Donodell. I think it was around 44%. And then man, did he go off today. Or yesterday, sorry, when we're recording this on Sunday. Uh yeah. Oh, yeah, your audio went away for a little bit, I think.
My audio just cut out.
There we go.
Apologies
You're back.
for that. Apologies for that. My girlfriend's in the other room and her AirPods immediately.
Ah. Oh, and it happened again. Anything can happen in a live show, listeners. All right. So while Jack's figuring that out, I'll just talk about Tucci a little bit more. So his first goal was actually a shorthanded goal, cleaning off the draw. I was so impressed how quickly he got the ball out on some of those. It was like a quick pinch and pop, and then it almost seemed like the ball just passed through his mesh to get to the right side, the right orientation, where he just ran straight down the middle. He faked to an attackman just to freeze the defense, and shot from pretty far out, from I think 13 or 14 yards, like not too far inside the 2-point line. Ward, it seemed like, was not expecting it. He was kind of falling backwards as he tried to make the save. And a shorthanded goal by your FOGO, like there's not much more that can juice you up than
No,
that.
that
Uh,
was hype.
but the juice play of all juice plays happened right at the end of the first half.
Oh my goodness.
So the Waterdogs had the ball with about 20 seconds to go. We're thinking, all right, 6-4. They'll take that lead into halftime. Sowers dodges Jeff Trainer up high as he does. Shoots again from pretty far out, like 14 yards with four
Yeah, he
seconds
was.
to go. Makes it a
Yep.
1-goal game. And we're like, all right, it wasn't a 2. Cannon still the lead, but what a bummer. But Zach Tucci, man, you knew he was going to win the ball clean, or you knew he was going to win the ball. Um, just picks it up. I must have been Courier was on him pretty quickly, and from I don't know, at least 30 yards probably.
He was well beyond the arc.
Yeah, let's they
Yeah,
have the
I
football
didn't
line.
think it was possible to score that quickly because I feel like usually if even if you have a clean face off and go down and score, it's usually about 6 seconds that
Yeah.
comes off the clock. But so the fact that there was 4 point something, I was thinking, well, there's no chance that the Cans can score in that amount of time. But if you win it and just huck it,
Yep.
I guess there is enough time to get a shot off.
Yeah. So
And
the PLL rule is the ball has to leave the offensive player's stick before the clock hits 0, but it does not have to go in the net before the clock hits 0. Which
right.
is exactly what happened here. And I did look up the play. Tucci was about at the 30-yard line, and then the goal was about at the 10, I believe.
Mhm.
Or no, it's at the 15. Yeah, because the end line is the goal line on the football
Mhm.
field. So it was 25 yards thereabouts.
Yep.
Sideways, essentially desperation play. And credit to Marcus Holman for going up in front of the goal. I don't know if he
I
has
wanted to
any
talk about
hockey in his
that.
background, but that is just a textbook hockey play. Is stand in front of the goalie so he can't see the puck until it's on him.
I also that you talk about the rule that it can't or the ball has to be out of the offensive player's stick. So
Yeah,
it can hit a defensive player and redirect in and it'll still count. But if it hits any part of another offensive player, it wouldn't count. And when I was going back and rewatching it, and actually Ryan Boyle was talking about it on the broadcast, that Marcus Holman's stick was directly in the path
mm,
of the shot, and he moved it right at the last second as part of like his screening
Yeah.
of Ward. So that's also just very heads up. Like you say, not only is he making it harder for Ward to see, but the fact that Holman realizes that the ball is coming right at him. And so at the last second, he moves out of the way so that the ball doesn't touch him. Because obviously it wouldn't have counted then if he had redirected it. So that I thought was just an incredibly high lacrosse
Oh my
IQ
God.
play
Yeah.
from Marcus.
Yeah.
For as much as it's a Zach Tucci game and Zach Tucci is going to get remembered for that, and Marcus Holman is going to get plenty of kudos
Oh
for
yeah.
everything. So, like, I think that it is totally fine and totally deserved that Zach Tucci gets the credit for that goal and for the win or whatever as being the player of the game. But in the spirit of sort of recognizing the guy that might not always get recognized, Marcus Holman deserves so much kudos
Yeah.
on that goal.
I think it was a tricky balance, but I do think if Ward saw it the whole way, like he's a very good goalie, he's probably going to save it. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right because Holman was, I think, less than 10 yards, and you know how high Ward likes to play. Like he made a few saves, or at least tried to make a few saves, literally
Mhm.
outside his crease, which means he's at least 3 yards away from the goal.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, you're right. All credit to that. And what a difference to think to be up one going into the half, or think you're going to be up one going into the half, and then all of a sudden you're up three on the unlikeliest of plays.
Yeah. Yeah. From your FOGO 2 guy that you're just not expecting to score, I
Yeah.
think that was a huge momentum swing.
Yeah.
And obviously the Waterdogs did end up closing the gap,
Yeah. So
but
it's
I,
tied 10-10 going into the fourth, which,
yeah,
third quarter the Cannons would not be super proud of.
no. And, but also I think credit to the Cannons then for being talking about momentum swings that you're up 10-9 with a minute to go in the fourth. And I was feeling really good when the ball seemed to skirt away on that man down. And I think there was
Yeah.
probably about 20 seconds. And then for the Water Dogs to put one in with point 0.8 left
I
to tie
know.
the game, like that could be such a soul crusher, especially with the home crowd.
Yeah.
Philly's so juiced up. Like I could totally see Philly just carrying that momentum into overtime. And I think that if they have a faceoff guy, like we already talked about, that Philly could have won that game if they had a faceoff guy and like won it. And that's referring to in regulation. But if they created some new crazy PLL rule and you could add someone to your team like for overtime and Stathakis just randomly appeared for overtime, didn't play all of regulation, just showed up for overtime. I think the Water Dogs have a very real chance of winning because if they can win that face-off, like they've got
Oh yeah.
all of the juice going
Yeah.
for them, then coming off of the buzzer beater and then getting the ball first. Like I love Colin Curse, but I don't know if you stop the momentum if they're riding on it like that. So the fact that Tucci can win the faceoff and then just go right down immediately
Yeah.
was huge. Even if he had missed the shot, like I would have been scared if the Water Dogs did end up getting the ball back because they would have felt good about getting a stop and had
And
the
52
momentum of the
seconds.
buzzer beater and
Yeah.
52 seconds. And it's like then it would have been yikes. So all I can say is God bless Zach Tucci.
Yeah. Thank
Uh
goodness it played out the way it did.
that was unreal. I loved how Holman was saying after the game that he told Tucci to go down and just throw it over the net so that
Mhm.
they could get set in their offense. And Tucci's just basically like, you know what? I'm actually gonna shoot it.
Yeah. Well,
And then Holman even said himself, I'm so glad Tucci's smarter than I am. And I'm like I love having a coach that is so not self-deprecating, but like that you know what I mean? Just that
yeah.
the personality that Holman has that he can say something and that first off, Tucci feels comfortable enough to change what the coach said based off of what he sees and how it plays out, that he's not like, oh, coach said throw it over the net, so I will throw it over the net. He's like,
Mm,
no, I got a shot, so I'm gonna
yeah.
shoot it. I'm feeling good.
I will
And
say there's like an off chance because it was a very high bouncer that he shot. So he's running in again. He took the shot from about 14 yards out, which you kind of have to
mhm,
against Dylan Ward because Dylan Ward was basically outside the crease.
mhm.
Like it was a very high bouncer, wound up going kind of top corner. Like there's a decent chance that maybe he was trying to shoot it up, but your stick gets warped when you're facing off all game. And
I
like if that shot misses, it's going over the net. Holman or Nolting picks it up anyway. Like I'm not
That's
saying he wasn't
true.
trying to score. I'm saying he took a very good shot that it's either going in or going over the net.
That's true. And maybe that's why he formed the shot in
Yeah.
that way. Because he didn't want it to be easily caught by Warden, have it going back in transition. But I think it definitely was a shot. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think he was trying to miss the net.
definitely not.
He definitely was attempting to score
Yeah.
on that play, and he did, and I love it. New
Yeah.
England kid, hometown boy. I mean, there's just so many storylines around that, around just the Zach Tucci aspect of this game, with the revenge game against the Waterdogs, the hometown kid winning the game. Like,
Yep.
oh, I really hope we get a second Zach Tucci game in
Yeah.
in Harvard in a couple weeks. Maybe a Jeff Trainer game too.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, if he could put
that
up
would
like
be
a goal or
sweet.
two against UMass or, get like a key turnover or shut a guy down,
Yeah,
like that'll
that
really
would
get
be
the crowd up.
sweet.
I'm sure UMass will have a good contingent out for that.
Oh, the 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 Trainer family, all I think all of Bill Ricca might
Yeah.
show up to the stadium, given their turnout for the Cannons Atlas game at Gillette
Mm,
last year. I legitimately think the entire town of Bill Ricca might be at Harvard Stadium
cannot wait.
that
And this was
weekend.
probably like aside from the playoff venue, Gillette is certainly the biggest they'll be at, but Harvard
Mhm.
might be the biggest of the regular season. I think it's definitely bigger than Villanova. It's certainly bigger than like Fairfield. It's bigger than Homewood. Um, we have a chance to get a really, really good crowd.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah.
It's gonna be phenomenal.
Yeah. If you have not gotten your tickets for that, I hope this Canada's Waterdogs game inspired you to get at least for the rematch, if not for both days, because we know it's
Yeah,
going to be four fantastic lacrosse games. Cannon's Redwoods game one. Another BU alum, Chris Gray. Well, not strictly speaking alum because he transferred to UNC, but 4 years at BU where he scored a lot of goals. Will be returning back to Massachusetts to take on the Cannons in game one. Um, I think that'll also be a fantastic game. We'll see how Tucci does against TD Erlin, who
yeah.
had a great game against Baptiste today. I don't know if,
Mhm.
if you saw any of that, but yeah, Erlin got the better of Baptiste.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, maybe we want to we're
yeah,
time's winding down. We want to just run through the other
for sure.
games real quick.
So yeah, so we thought this game was a goalie battle, 12-11 final. The Archers and I can't think of who they're playing.
Chaos.
Yeah, so the Archers and Chaos final of that game, 9-7.
Wow. Yeah, I
I
saw
don't.
that.
Yeah. So Dobson, a bit of a return to form. Reardon back 2 weeks after dislocating his kneecap.
Had an
Wait,
assist too.
yeah, and had an assist. That he's just insane. Like he wasn't even recruited to Albany as a goalie, and he's probably the best goalie in the league. It-
He- he-
yeah,
he's one of those like freak athletes. It's just like how are you so good?
I know. He plays forward in the NLL, and clearly has like someone on the broadcast said he had like Deadpool healing technology, like powers, where just
Yeah, that
nothing.
like what?
Yeah. 2 weeks after anyway. So great game, low scoring game. Low key, the Chaos and Archers have had a good rivalry, and the Archers have not played the Chaos very well in the past couple of years. So I'm sure that win meant a lot to them.
Mhm.
If you had either of those goalies on your fantasy team, you probably felt very good. And then
Hey,
the Atlas Redwoods, the exact opposite of that. Final score 20-15 Atlas.
dude, I'm so scared of New York.
I know.
I really don't like the this. I, I've said it on the pod before. I've never liked the Atlas, and this is the first year that they're New York, and of course, this is the first year where they're seeming to be like legitimately good, and
Yeah.
it's just like the worst possible timing because my like dislike of the Atlas just skyrocketed going into this year, and now I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think
really wish they would suck.
the scariest part of this game especially is that they did not win most faceoffs. TD went 24 for 34. Baptiste went 12 for 29.
Wow.
So they didn't have as much of the ball as they were used to. Certainly not as much as they did against the Cannons, and it didn't.
Hmm.
I think the Redwoods, like the Cannons, are also a defense that's in a little bit of transition with the retirement of
Hmm.
Glazner,
Blazer obviously
especially.
losing that bull.
Yeah.
Sexton retired.
Yeah. So again, I expect them to maybe be a little bit better as the year goes on, but still, the fact that like this team, the Atlas that is, just
Also,
can't stop
Troutner
scoring.
revenge game.
Yes, the Troutner revenge game. He finished, he was above 50%. He went 16 saves, 53%. I mean, obviously, like he gave up 15. Not
Maybe
great.
not revenge because he chose to go to New York, but
But I think he,
neither
he
here
lost
nor
his
there.
starting job. I'm sure there was, if not bitterness, at least like, he wishes he could have stayed the
Yeah,
starter. And
right.
man, he's played himself into that role at the Atlas. I mean, obviously we all thought Endeman was going to be the guy, but week one, the Twarton ceremony, he doesn't really practice. You stick Troutner in net and he does well enough to earn it, and he's kept earning it.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
And then finally, like we said, we were recording during the Whip Snakes Waterdogs. So I'm trying to not spoil that game for myself. Hopefully, watch it once we're done here. So we could give you a live update, but I don't want to because I want to enjoy that organic experience myself. Hopefully, get to see Philly go 0 and 3.
it'd
Although
be
I'd also
nice.
enjoy seeing Maryland go 0 and 3. So
It'll be great either way.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Whatever the outcome of that
Yeah,
game is, I'll be fine with it. Because
yeah,
someone's going 0 and 3. And the Cannons, I think regardless of that game, yeah, regardless of that outcome, will still be second in the East. So
yep.
securely in a playoff position.
That's
What a
right.
turnaround from week one to now weeks 2 and 3. Um, yeah, great game. We are well, the league is off next week. That is a bye. And then they're back 2 weeks in Minneapolis. The Cannons play the 28th. We'll still be checking in with you later this week. Hopefully we'll have a guest. We have not confirm exactly who that will be yet. Perhaps another supporter group. We'll figure it out. But yeah, don't worry. You will still have plenty of us in your ears and or eyes, depending on if you listen to this on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else. Um, yeah, what a win. Always good to beat Philly. New York is still scary, but you know, thank goodness for Zach Tucci. I think is the note we'll end on. Thank goodness for Zach Tucci.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. All right. We will check in with you later this week.
Make sure get your homecoming tickets. I don't know where they'll be linked, maybe in description, or they're definitely on our Instagram as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah, please, if you have not got your homecoming tickets, please. July 5th and 6th, it's going to be two incredible games. Um, and we hope to see you all there. All right. Go
sweet.
Cannons.
All right. Boom.
Boom.